The lido, or the lido, used to be a very, very sort of glamorous place to come.
The whole space is about theatre, and if somebody goes up onto a diving board, everybody stops and watches. And the ones that are experienced at diving tend to kind of play to the crowd. So, you know, the whole thing is kind of performance art.
Back in the days when, you know, people didn't travel, it was the place where everything happened. It was like the Riviera would be in the 60s, a place to come and strut your stuff, really.
And it's such a landmark. It was really common to say, I'll meet you at the Lido. You know, yeah, you go to the beach, but there's lots of beach, whereas this is the place you gather and centralise. That was my memory mainly, actually. Everybody you knew, which was kind of nice as a kid, you know. Quite a comforting feeling.
Yeah, because it's not just like a swimming pool, there's more things to do outside of it as well.
And it's like different to come here because it's like there's the grass and stuff, not just indoors.
I think there is something very special about, you know, being in a pool and looking up at the blue sky. I mean, it's absolutely wonderful. Feeling of space and of freedom, of giving yourself space.
We used to have a lot of outdoor swimming places, and now we have very few, and that's a great shame.
There are few lidos around, so therefore there is a desire to make sure that the next generation enjoyed the same kind of things that we had.
This pool was built by the unemployed people of Wandsworth, and it's been a community bathing pond, I think it was called in the early days. At a time when many people probably didn't have baths or in-house toilets or anything like that. So it was a place to come and swim, but probably also a place to come and have a bit of a wash. I've been swimming at the Lido since the early 80s. History of the club, as I know, people used to come down here and swim in the winter. They'd just strip off, skinny dipping, swim around the pool, and that was it. It wasn't as smart as it is now. It was fairly run down. The autumn's beautiful because when the leaves fall off the trees, they float on the surface, and as you're swimming, if you look up underneath the water, the leaves are hanging down like golden chandeliers on a turquoise ceiling, so that's very beautiful. In the spring, you have the promise of summer coming, and there's just something lovely about emerging from a sort of the dark time of the year. And in the winter, there's a great joy in the winter because instead of cowering up and saying, oh, it's the winter and everything, you're taking it full on and you're looking it in the face and you're saying, I can deal with you, and you get enormous satisfaction from the cold and being out there, and you know, you roar, you get in there and you come out and then you, like a big orangutan, you go, yes! And it's a kind of affirmation of life in the middle of the dark, dim death of winter.
I've been swimming here for 3 or 4 years. I started swimming because I think I used to panic a lot in cold water in the summer. I know swimming in the summer it was cold, and I found that really frightening, so I started to learn how to swim in properly cold water. I just love it. I wouldn't miss it for the world. So we have races every Sunday morning. So it's not a competitive race. It's simply everybody's trying as hard as they can to get out as fast as they can because it's so cold. So it's not actually competing against the others. You're just competing against yourself and the elements. And so you wouldn't miss that. It clears your head fantastically. If you're not feeling very well, it really sort of perks you up. If you've got a hangover, it cures that. But it doesn't have any effect on really difficult arguments you're having at home. Those persist. It's a really strong, gathered community. You know, until 2 or 3 years ago, I never actually did any sporting activity. So, and I don't do it because I'm a sports nut. It's just so nice to be here with all these people.
So a lidathon, or the lidathon that we've invented, is a marathon across 4 lidos in London. But it's not marathon length, it's only 1 mile across 4 lidos. But it's a race between a number of teams, so it might be 1, 2, 3, 4 teams. And you can either opt to travel between the lidos on public transport or bicycle. So we plot a route before each year, and it's basically a race from pool number 1 through 2, 3, and ending up normally in London Fields Lido, because there's lots of nice bars and places to eat at the end. I personally think the lidos are incredibly important to local areas. They're just so much more pleasant than indoor pools. They generally have a really lovely community built around them who want to take care of it and love it.
I'm Mrs. Doreen Fitch, and my role is membership secretary. And I've been coming here, oh dear, yes, 75 years. It was fantastic. We just walked in, my mum and dad and me, we walked in here, and I'd never seen anything like it. It was absolutely enormous. That was before I met my husband, of course. I didn't meet him until I was 17, and then he was the swimmer, not me. Mainly speaking, it's not the water, it's not the buildings, it's the people. This place is the people. They're my family.
I came to Lewes in the early 1970s to work in the museum here. I've got a back problem, and I was told to swim to help the back problem. So I used to come to Appel's one nice warm summer, and I was swimming every day, and I rather took to it. Then one very cold day when I had an awful headache, I decided I wouldn't swim, but then I had the whole day to fill. So I thought I would go for a swim after all. I couldn't feel any worse than I did. And my headache cleared just like that. It was extraordinary. The Victorian history of the pool, and the pool was built in about 1860 and it opened in 1861. It was 2 swimming pools at that time. The purpose of 2 pools was that one, the vanished pool, was actually really meant for workers to have baths in. It was a washing facility as much as a swimming pool. And the surviving pool was called the subscription pool, and people paid for a season ticket to use that. As more and more households got baths and running water, slowly fewer people were using the free pool. And also, after the First World War, they started to teach children to swim here. Swimming became a curriculum subject. And if children learnt to swim here, and they learnt in the subscription pool, they were given a free ticket for the next year.
Yeah, we've had a good day here. It was quite good. The water's cold though.
What's your trick for getting used to the water?
Just the longer you stay in there, the warmer it gets.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a couple of years ago there was an application for a job down near Australia for looking after some islands, and it was quoted as the best job in the world. I beg to differ. This is a community place, and people come here, and sometimes they don't even swim. They just come down and have a cup of tea, or they come down and sunbathe, or they come read the paper. So they feel they can come down here to escape, and because it's loved, the place is looked after. It sort of spreads really to the customers, and I think that's a big difference. That's why they built them originally, you know, not particularly this one, because this was built before the 30s, and the 30s was a time where community pools were built for family recreational use. They weren't silly then, and so I think it's coming around again. It's a way of life in Lewes, yeah, and it's their pool. You can see that, you can feel that.
When it's open, I try and swim here at least once a week and twice a week, hopefully.
on swimming my 10 or 20 lengths I tried to do. When I moved here, I think it was still being run by the district council, and they were very worried about how much it was costing them. They were going to close it, and that was the point where the community got together, and so it's now moved into this community association. And yeah, I mean, they're making a great go of it. It's fantastic. So I mean, I would support it for that reason, because I think it's a focus for the local people here. But I mean, a lot of these pools are closed. I mean, I think as this one of the oldest ones, it's absolutely essential it should be kept open. I mean, it's a real bit of history.
I asked about outdoor pools and had heard about this, you see. And everyone I asked in New Milton, which is quite away from here, they said, oh, there's crabs, it's horrible. It's not very nice.
Well, it's always been crabs, but when we were children...
Oh, but it's filtered now, you see.
Yeah, there used to be eels. There used to be eels in the water then when I was a child down here.
Well, you get them in the sea, don't you? Not
yeah, crabs aren't going to...
They're not germy, are they?
But I've been swimming for about 15 years here. No crab has ever met my toes.
No,
they're frightened of you, aren't they?
Of course.
They're not going to hurt you, are they?
Mind you, I do have big feet, so maybe that puts them off.
In 1775, it was first opened as baths. Before that were people swimming in the salt marsh pans. In 1930, it was taken over by the then Borough Council, and they were given a loan from the Minister of Health to buy the pool for the well-being of the public and visitors to Lymington.
I was a schoolmaster here from 1950 to 56, and at that time another lady and I brought children down here to teach them to swim. We used to bring 60 or 70 children at a time, and it was a bit murky, and it had got gravel on the bottom there, and Mr. Montgomery, the pool attendant here, would take the children, or the boys who could swim well, and teach them water polo. So that helped us by relieving our numbers somewhat. Yeah. Mr. Montgomery used to put up a notice for the temperature, but none of us believed that when we came in. It was always pretty cold, but we enjoyed it, and that was a great thing. And many a child learned to swim.
Thanks to Monty, the superintendent at that time, he did the youngsters a big favour really, and kept a lot of the boys off the streets, and they had something to do. So I think he did a wonderful job really.
Monty, yes, he was my uncle, my mum's brother, and that's why we sort of practically lived down here. We just loved the swimming baths. Well, I was down here sort of like almost from birth, I should think. Learned to swim very early. Just came down every day, all through the summer holidays, on our bikes. Just love it to pieces.
I think the basic bottom is it doesn't make money, and that's what they don't like.
It all depends on the weather, you see.
And then it was all this health and safety business. Oh, it would cost too much. But when we got right down to the bottom of it, all it needed was a bit of basic patching up, and it passed all the health and safety regulations. It's just that we created such a stink. But I think the kiosk has made a profit this year, so that helps subsidise this. But it's an amenity. The council shouldn't be expecting to make a lot of money.
There are children sitting in front of televisions and videos all day. This is much better for them, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it's more healthier.
It's to make a healthier nation.
We got tremendous support from everybody in Lymington, didn't you know? They really...
Yeah, you do meet a lot of different people, you meet up with a lot of different people.
Well, I wouldn't be friends with you and Pat if it wasn't for the pool, because I wouldn't have met you otherwise,
She didn't have any friends before.
No, she didn't.
Thank you.
What lidos say about our culture is that we've chucked away an awful lot of our culture over the years without really giving it due consideration and realising what it stood for. And that's a great shame. When I was 20, I was a lifeguard at Southampton Lido. And what I remember of it is it was a lovely, quirky sort of Lido. In the summer, on a good sunny day, man, that place was hopping. In the 80s, that like many Lidos, was filled in, concreted over. I think it became a car park. And that's gone now, and it's a great shame.
I used to swim in the Southampton Lido in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, and in fact when I was at school in the summer holidays I'd come down here 2 or 3 times a week. What you can see behind is roughly almost the shape of what the outside sort of perimeter wall of the Southampton Lido was, but the entrance was a road on the other side in what we call Western Esplanade, and that fronted up with a Victorian red brick building. It actually became rebuilt in 1930, and that's the Lido that Southampton people would have been very familiar with from the Art Deco rebuild of 1930. All the young lads like me in our day, we all had a spectacular plunge. That initial plunge had to be something you had to, you know, some lads would go off the high board and do a somersault if they could. And my one, I'd go to the deep end of this long wooden chute that was lubricated by the water jets, and I'd run up the steps and launch myself head first over the top. But one day I did this, and it was first thing in the morning, and the water jets hadn't been turned on. And as I screeched down this wooden chute, it burnt my chest. And apparently I screamed so loud, somebody later said they heard it up in the high street. And when I hit the water, I was just red raw. It rubbed a couple of layers of skin off my chest. Whereas this was a very popular outdoor Lido, which people love to come to. It was part of the sort of social centre of Southampton, and for young people as well, some of them to go. And now it's basically a retail park. A Lido is something which won't make any profit, and there's no business rates to draw from it, whereas a retail park can. But what it's about is well-being and people's happiness, and it's good for the community.
My name's Dennis Audley. I'm the head lessee of the Lido building and its surrounding land. We have had detailed discussions with Brighton Hove Council, Planning Department and Conservation, trying to resolve the issue of the non-profitability of the building, which they accepted was the case, hence they closed it down in the late 80s. I think what people don't understand is in 1934, when the facility was constructed, it was the latest thing. It was the place to be seen with the latest sewing costumes, a meeting place, if you like, something new. Whereas nowadays, we're in competition with an awful lot of indoor pools that have wave machines and constant temperatures, where the youngsters can relax more easily, even in bad weather. It's very difficult to maintain a building which is on the seafront, which is of a concrete nature, which is always deteriorating when you're making a loss from your trading business. So the sort of loss that we've made over the 12 years that I've owned it is in excess of £350,000. So unfortunately our costs in the last 5 years have exceeded our takings through the gate.
The Save Saltdean Lido campaign was established in March 2010, really as a result of the leaseholder announcing plans to fill in the swimming pool with concrete and build several stories high with over 100 flats. Obviously the local community were outraged, so a small group of us got together and set up the campaign to really demonstrate the feeling that it wasn't something that the community wanted. I think people feel really strongly and passionately about Saltdean Lido. People have very fond memories of it. We've had messages of support and emails from all around the world, from people that learned to swim there, people that met their partners there, all sorts of really wonderful, charming stories. But I think over and above that, I think fundamentally people don't want to lose a building to flats and to residential development. It's really a piece of history, it's very iconic, and it is really the hub of Saltdean.
I'm Mike Beaumont, and this is Abby, my wife, Abby Beaumont. This is our little boy Harry, and we've got another little boy, 4-year-old as well. We've lived in the local area. I've lived in the local area all my life, 35 years, and then my memories are, it was just somewhere you went. You went there every year without fail. You would always know, 10, 20 people, and I think that's really attractive as well. You go and spend a whole day. It's a bit like a school outside of school, especially in the summer.
Personally think just that it's good for the kids the age they are now, but I think it's really important as well for kids as they get older. I mean, their cousins that come over are sort of 13, 14, 15, and it's a great place for them to hang out, and I think there's a shortage of places for sort of kids, teenage kids, to go and to hang out, and I think it'd be a real shame for them if it goes as well, because it's one less place for them to go.
We certainly hung here as kids. You know, anything from, I suppose, the age of 6, 7, 8, come with mum and dad, and then, you know, 9, 10, 11, my brother was 2 years older, so 9 years old with my brother on the bus, come here, and then right through to, it was a place that you would go to probably 15, 16, and, you know, the example is quite fascinating, to see graffiti saying "Save the Lido," which I can only assume is done by kids, and, you know, how fantastic. They obviously feel quite passionate about it, and why not, because it's quite unique.
Well, it was my birthday, and we headed down the community centre, which is behind the Lido. Very well known and respected local artist, Vince Donvin, who just did the outline. And then, as we're all, you know, conversant with the problems going on down there, and it does excite a lot of interest. Of the 120 people at the party, 119 had a little dab at it. They put every little bit in here. The only one who didn't have a dab at it was me, because I was too drunk by the time 12 o'clock came to do it. There's a beautiful mermaid coming out of the Lido pool itself. Here be dragons, of course. Now, I don't know if that's a reflection on property developers, but it may well be a reflection. I don't know, and I shouldn't. No, I've said it's too late. Of course, it isn't a realistic painting, but it doesn't matter. It's an absolutely lovely thing.
What we'd like to see happen is for the council to take the lease back from the leaseholder who isn't maintaining the building and looking after it, and for us to actually operate the building as Friends of Saltdean Lido as a community interest company. And we think that's really important, that it's run for the community, and then we won't have a situation where somebody wants to knock it down for flats or anything like that again in the future. One of our nearest Lidos is Hillsea, which is in Portsmouth, and they've just kind of battled with their council and successfully managed to secure the lease on the building. So I know they're open this summer and they're currently fundraising, so they've done really well.
I'm Sabrina Richards. I'm the chair of Hillsea Lido Pool for the People Trust. I started with a group of fellow residents who felt very strongly about the Lido, and we've moved from being a pressure group into our trust, and so we're working on that. Hillsea Lido was built in 1935. It was built as a leisure facility for all the new housing and the new families that were in the area. Originally this was a saltwater pool. Then you have these wonderful cascades that kind of gave it bubbles, were all part of the kind of management of the water. If you think of the working environment at that time, if you think of the housing in that time, they wouldn't have had much in the way of facilities. And so therefore something like this is absolutely fantastic. It's all part of you know, people need facilities, and it was seen as a duty of the local authority to provide facilities, but over time these things have kind of changed. It had been council run. Originally they had their own staff here, then in latter days they had, it was managed by a management company on an annual basis, and I think that's possibly where the decline comes, because towards the end it would only be open for August. So you've got a company coming in, managing it for August, and then it's kind of forgotten until the next kind of spring when you go through the routine of cleaning it and getting it ready. The research we've done shows that these places, when they've been taken over by community groups, have actually become popular again. So it's been cleaning and painting and clearing and just gradually bringing this wonderful place back into use. And one of the things we did here in our exhibitions was do some knitted swimming costumes. We did them because it was about 1935 and it was showing the fashion at that time. And it was a new thing, you know, it was body beautiful. It was very much about fashion. It was very much about seen and be seen. Lidos are a very special space. It's a space for all the family to congregate. It's a social space. It's very little about swimming, and it's much more about social and enjoying yourself. You never know how these things work, but maybe it's a mixture of nostalgia, a mixture of people enjoying simple pleasures again, and realising that they can do so, and that the children are perfectly happy doing that. And it's for all people. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those spaces that doesn't really matter. Everybody is fairly equal in a space like this, and I think people enjoy that.
I mean, the etiquette down here is, I think, it's about welcoming people. The Lido culture is about welcoming everybody. It's about eccentricity and the pleasure in differences and different people and different ways of being.
We've got 1,235 members, which is the most we've ever had. When I first started in the late 80s, 70s even, I think we started off with 20 belonged to the South London Swimming Club. Then we all marched on the town hall because they were going to close it. And my husband did a speech, which I wrote.
The council said, well, actually, we don't want to keep the pool open during the winter. And the campaign was very much about, if you close it during the winter, you won't see it opening again in the summer. And the people who swim during the winter are in fact the guardians of the Lido for the community. If it closed, it would never close because there's probably enough people who would mount the barricades and fight to keep it open at any cost. I think it's absolutely integral to many people's lives in terms of making sense of what it is to live in a big city.
It's been my life. It is my life. I try to come every day. I'm not a swimmer. I can swim, just about, nothing much. But he was a swimmer. He died on those steps. He was quite happy, May the 22nd, walking along, talking to everybody. I stayed up there, this entrance wasn't here. And he's walking along, and all the other swimmers, this is what this kind of club is, they knew he was delicate, and they watched. There were 5 of them watching him. He went down those steps, he swam across here, swam back again, went to climb up the stairs and fell back, and they stopped him from going in the water, and he died on the edge. That's why I come. This is where my husband's spirit is, not in the cemetery. Cold places, cemeteries.
One of those funny things, by trying to close it, they actually galvanised South London Swimming Club into becoming a proper club and gathering support in the community, petitions, that kind of thing. So we felt it was our job to preserve it.